Hey, Richard Meller again here for Facts for Working People. I'm going to start with this. I did something today that I haven't done in a while. I took a nice hot bath in Epsom salts. I had to soak my hands and my whole body here. It's getting a little older. And when I was growing up, we never had showers. We always had baths. Americans had showers. I used to go up the base. They had showers up there. I had friends up there, and but that's what we had, baths. And I can actually remember when we had a tin bath in front of a fire on a cold winter's night. But the thing about baths is that you're sitting there and you're thinking, and I was thinking about just lots of different things, and that's probably part of my problem, that I think too much, some people say. But one of the things I wanted to comment on was this question of class consciousness. We've talked a bit about that, and I've written stuff about it. We've had stuff others have on the blog and what have you. And, I recall some time ago, I want to give a couple of examples about it, in 2010 I was active in the student movement and strike movement, more of the student movement up in Cal in 2010 up at Berkeley. And around the state that there was demonstrations against, we called it the March 4th movement, against fee hikes. There was big rallies, big protests outside the regents' offices, and the regents of this public university are all bankers and hedge fund, even the liberal ones. They're all Blum, Feinstein's husband, is one of the regents. I mean, what is he doing involved in public education, So anyway, it was a very good. I remember being outside Wheeler at one time when the young people had occupied it, and there was about 600 or 700 of us outside, and I remember some of them talking about the cops being, our brothers and this, that, and the other. And within not too long, a week or so, they'd had the crap kicked out of them, and calling them brothers and what have you, suddenly recessed into the consciousness. But I want to say a couple of things about that struggle up there, I wanted to start off with just. I have a tremendous admiration for the courage and the audacity of the young people, and also young people often mass movements and big movements and social upheavals are started by young people at universities, originate at young people in universities, where ideas and discussing ideas is a little more, the environment is different to the workplace. And the thing about up there, I found, there were many genuine youth that there was a lot of minority youth involved in it, because they wanted more slots at the universities for different minorities, and they genuinely were involved in the struggle up there to try and improve those conditions. I always had trouble when it came to the question of more slots for people of colour, because when I looked up at Cal, I looked up the statistics for the population of the university system, and actually more students were people of colour than white people. The problem was there was one colour they didn't want to include because they do too well, they don't make a statistic look good, and that was the Asians. And so the thing is, though, if you're going to use colour as the basis for more improvement in sole basis for the improvement in education, that's a problem you get into. You can't pick and choose on that question. That doesn't mean that there's special attention should be given to oppressed nationalities and people of colour and the various groups that have been marginalised in society due to racism, what have you. So there were many genuine youth up there that were involved in those struggles, and the thing is a lot of them were petty bourgeois youth, and a lot of people, the petty bourgeois youth and the petty bourgeois in general, see themselves as the natural born leaders of the working class, and that's true also of the people of colour in this group, who may not see workers' unity as a possibility for genuine reasons, and you can understand it in a lot of ways, but also there's people tend then to focus on gender, race, religious oppression and everything else, and class falls into the background. And that piece we put on the blog the other day, written by that Indian professor in John Jay College, I don't know where it is, about this question, I thought was very good. And if you read the blog, you should check that out. And so that class becomes pushed into the background. And like I say, I think it's completely understandable given the present situation, the mood, the relative passivity of the working class as a whole, that people would have that reaction. But there's also those who are just opportunistic, for opportunistic reasons, because the unity of the working class is a threat to this layer, to the middle class, to the petty bourgeois. It's a threat to all sections of the petty bourgeois, of people of colour, and the white petty bourgeois as well. The difference is, of course, is the white petty bourgeois have more connections to the ruling class, who are also dominated. The ruling class is also dominated by people with white skin. So they are much more of a confident class and feel less threatened. So as I say, some are genuine. What they are is they want their little position in capitalism. They want to advance the middle class, the small capitalist of colour within the framework of capitalism. And so class unity for them is the death knell. It is for the white ones as well, but particularly it's a threat to them. And I remember one time there was a strike up there. The university had these cafes, in the cafeteria. There was a Mexican ones and Asian ones and little small businesses. These were contracted out. There were contracts, and my position there up there as a public sector worker was they should all be part of the university system. The workers there should be unionized. They shouldn't be contracted out. So what happened was some of the chains were starting to move in, and I think one of them was that big chain Tully's is a coffee shop. But the big chains wanted to move in. The small capitalists, a Latino I remember, and an Asian, I think a South Asian, Southeast Asian, they were fighting back. The small capitalist, and many of the students supported their struggle against the chain, which is a good thing, and so they called a strike. It was a 1-week strike. I don't know whether the Latino guy called it. I don't know whether it was a joint effort, but the business owner called it. So anyway, I wandered on up there, and it was an exciting scene. I come in, and there's all the young students there, all different types of students, and they're all around the business owner. And I've got pictures of them with the owner of the cafe, the owner of the burrito place or the Mexican restaurant, and the Asian place. And so they were all around them. And as I walked in the door, I looked over at a table, and I see these. It was about six guys sitting there, Latino guys, and it was obviously all Latino guys. These guys sitting down there. I knew immediately who they were. They were the workers in the restaurant. So not one of the students was talking to those people, you see. So I walked over there, and I just started to talk to them. And I asked them, I said, are you guys getting paid? And they said they were not sure whether they were going to get paid. But they had to come up and sit there, the boss said, because if they didn't, they wouldn't get anything, and maybe there was threats of losing their job altogether. I have no idea, but they were unsure. You could see it on their faces. I knew immediately they were workers. They were the workers there, and the students paid no attention to them at the time I was there whatsoever. Their whole focus was on the small capitalist, was on the petty bourgeois. This was their orientation. And so I sat and chatted with those guys. And, when I was talking with some of the students afterwards, I said, look, the workers never got a vote in this strike. I learned that they got paid half pay. Afterwards, apparently, they got half a pay, so they still lost half a week's work, and they couldn't go out and make that up. That's what they told me. We had to come up here every day. So the boss called the strike the small capitalist in his competition with the chains. The students supported the small capitalist in his competition with the chains, and that's correct. But the problem was the workers were ignored. There was no democracy there. That wasn't a strike. It was a strike, but it was a strike of the small capitalists to maintain their position. The position should have been, while defending the small capitalist against the chain, the position should have been of workers, of the students, if they oriented to the workers, should have been that this should have been not contracted out. It should have been, those restaurants should have been public. The workers in those restaurants should have been in AFSCME or whatever union represented them. I know AFSCME's up there. And they should have been unionised. And as far as ending the private contracts, then who managed and who got the jobs there should have been the workers that worked for the private company, the private owner, and there should have been a selection process for who would be manager and brought those workers back. That should have been the solution to that problem. And it makes me think of work, for example. When I was at work, I remember the union used to have these stewards training courses. Now, I've got no problems with filing grievances. You use that avenue, but a grievance is a piece of paper. It's the legitimate, quote, negotiated means by which you can deal with grievances. But it's like anything else. A grievance is as strong as the union behind it. The union is as strong as the workers' ability to shut production down. The Constitution of the United States, those aspects that are important to us, it's just a piece of paper. What's important is the mass action behind it. And they would have take these people, they're doing it now, to be trained as stewards. Well, it's fine to learn the ins and outs of filling out a form and everything else. But in the last analysis, when you go in to represent that worker, if you don't have a class view, if you don't clearly recognize which side you're on, all of the rest is meaningless. It's the same as if you're a lawyer, it's meaningless. And often you'll get a steward that'll go in and they'll get wrapped up in this game. Their orientation is not to the power of the members and what have you. And it's the same with students, a lot of them. It's the same, we pointed out on our blog, with people like Assange, with people like the great physicist who says his solution to the crisis of capitalism is to colonize Mars. It's insane. But when you don't see the working class as the force that can change society, and it's the same with the left groups. A guy happened to mention on one of our articles on the blog the other day on Facebook, his response was, what is the left? Well, we're talking about the myriad of left groups. There's got to be thousands of people in the Bay Area here that are in left groups, socialist groups, anti-capitalist groups, and everything else. And when I was first involved in politics, I could meet students that were in these groups, and I'd be a little intimidated because they've read all the stuff, they know all the quotes. But you know what? If you do not see the working class as the force that can change society, as the force that can lead society, can govern society, then all of your reading is worthless. Because and I tell you, I sat across the table from mediators, state and federal mediators, who were in former left groups, that were in socialist groups. The class consciousness is key. The other stuff is an added learning history and reading about history is an added thing to it. In the last analysis, if you don't know what side you're on and you don't understand, you're not clearly see the working class as the alternative, the rest of that is meaningless. And unfortunately, as that woman said in that article, and we've said it about like the Women's March and what's happening today, all of these movements. Just imagine on that Women's March, if the union leadership had organised a massive union presence with banners, with everything else, that march would have taken on a different focus. The demands of the working class would have come out. It's like the woman said, it was originally in Jacobin, that article, about is socialism Eurocentric? Why is left academia the way it is, a miserable situation the way it is? Because the working class, at this point in time, there's been no major movements, there's been no major uprisings of the working class in this country at this point, and that's affected all sections of society. The working class, we don't have our own party here, there has not been a mass movement here for some time, and that's affected all aspects of society. So I wanted to say those few things. Remember that there will be a mass movement of the working class. It will be confused. It will be difficult given the absence of leadership at this point in time. But I wanted to say just those few things. Also, hopefully read our blog. If you can send us some money and help us, that would be good. The other side of it is we do have these conference calls where we try to keep abreast of the situation and try to keep ourselves afloat and want to help to build the mass movement that can change society. So this is Richard Mellor. These are my thoughts for today. Take baths a bit more often if you can get the time, okay? All right, thanks a lot.